This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 15, and verse 1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Shalom, shalom, Akim. Before I begin, I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Kakodash. Okay, double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. All right, peace, blessings, and salutations unto the hopeful elect. All right, I'm the brother Gabari Allah coming at you with another lesson, which will Lord willing be quick, and straight to the point, and this is pretty much a back to the basics sort of lesson. Okay, and just to use wisdom. All right, just use wisdom in everything you do. Okay, now in particular, I'm going to be emphasizing more on acting up carnally, and okay, right now, I speak for myself, that your spirit gets real roused up, and when you in the spirit and you you out preaching, okay, that spirit's on you, you feel just powerful, you're preaching the word, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but you also have to understand that we are still in captivity, and one of the main things that Jake is known for, is the temper. Okay, the quick to throw hands, quick to act like a ninja, act carnal. And we understand that there are going to be times where you have to be a man. Okay, you have to be a man, and there's something wrong with being a man in the sense of fighting someone else. But you have to understand that while we are in this captivity, they will never take our side, and that's just the way it is. Sometimes it just has to go down like that. Sometimes you gotta throw, sometimes you just gotta throw hands. But then other times, be more in the spirit, being more tuned in the spirit, man. We're gonna be more, all our revenge is gonna be, within Yahweh Hashem Yahushai when he has our revenge. Okay, so this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse 1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Okay, and we see this a lot. Okay, we see this a lot with with Jake. There's been plenty of videos of cops just brutally handling Jake because of how stupid Jake acts. Okay, Jake want to act like you on top of the world. These people don't care about your fucking rights. Ultimately, these people don't care whether you're in the right or in the wrong, man. As soon as you start stirring up those words of anger and wrath, guess what you're gonna get in return? And just that, man. So this is obviously to the newer brothers, because when I was first in this truth, man, quick little testimony. When I was first in this truth, man, I was never really a violent person, but when I was in this truth, when I first got in this truth, man, I was trying to throw hands with anybody. I thought I was this supreme person. I thought I was just this dude who knew, everything, and that's just not the case, man. That's just the scripture saying, knowledge puffeth up. So knowledge is gonna puff you up. If you don't control it. Okay, it says, the tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. All right, and you have to be wise, okay? Because that's how the men of the Lord are going to use. The men of the Lord are going to use wisdom. That's what the scriptures say, to be circumspect. Okay, real quick. Let me grab just real quick. All right, because this is exactly how we are. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 10, And verse 16, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Okay, so we are sheep in the midst of wolves. Okay, we are as prey sent unto predators. Okay, and it's described as that because nobody was going to side with us. Okay, being Hebrew Israelites. Okay, they're gonna say shit like, the scriptures say, roughly paraphrasing, not Salakia, slipping my mind, it's right on my tongue. Roughly paraphrasing, saying that the truth should be found blameless. Okay, you shouldn't put no spot, no blame on this truth, on this ministry. Okay. You shouldn't, because next thing you know, you get in a fight and now the ministry looks bad. Okay. When Sakari, they rolling around with straps on them, that makes the ministry look bad. And now, of course, they're not, real men of the Lord. Okay, you running around with straps. You pretty much just a gangster still. And but you call yourself Hebrew Israelites, and you're making the actual ministry look bad. It says, but be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Okay, a dove ain't gonna be out there looking for fights, looking for this, that, and the third. Okay, a dove is gonna be peaceful. And a dove tries to avoid danger. Okay, a dove ultimately tries to avoid danger. Okay, because you never know, man. That could be the Lord setting you up for a trial. Is you gonna be proud, or is you gonna move in wisdom? And that's something that brothers just have to determine for yourself. Of course, there's gonna be times where you just have to man up, and gird up your loins, and you're gonna have to do what you have to do. But there's a lot more times where you should use wisdom to try to escape it. Okay, it says now that's it on that. Going back to Proverbs chapter 15, and I'm gonna start at verse 3. The eyes of the Lord Yahweh are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. Verse 4, a wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit. All right. So you have to have a wholesome tongue. All right. When you in this world, because you have to not blend in, you have to sort of blend in. You have to be Clark Kent in a world, where you really Superman, but you got to disguise yourself as Clark Kent. You got to put on those glasses, and you got to really disguise yourself, distinguish yourself. Okay? And that's just a part of, moving in wisdom. You're not going to be, you're not going to be as a fool, you're not going to be at your job wearing shirt fringes, talking about, telling your boss, and you're going to slavery, man. That's going to fire you, man. You're not going to get no job, Now you're wondering why you can't keep a stable job, because you're not using wisdom. Okay, ultimately, you're not using wisdom. You're not putting off the old man. Okay? Now, real quick, I'm going to grab this and I'll close out. This is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 11. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. So, when you was a child, a kid, you're going to be very emotional. You're going to be very effeminate. Okay? Because a kid will throw temper tantrums and, do this, that, and the third until he gets his way. It says, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And part of putting away childish things is fighting for no reason. All right? You shouldn't be wanting to fight for no reason. Hey, you know what I mean? Okay, and we understand that the temper, the Spirit of the Lord is heavy on brothers right now. The Spirit of the Lord is very heavy on brothers right now. But you still have to use wisdom, and you still have to move in wisdom. Discern for yourself, okay? I'm not going to tell, another man, you know, I'm not going to tell another man how to, you know, fight his battles, so to speak. I'm not going to tell, I'm not going to be like, yeah, you should fight him here and, don't fight him this way, That's up for you to decide. You should have the spirit of discernment. Okay, don't be fighting for no BS. You're not a nigga anymore. All right, you a man of the Lord. You in this knowledge. You in this truth. Start acting like it. Okay, because really, once you in this ministry, you don't. You sort of not look down on them, but you kind of do. You kind of like, man, why am I gonna fight you? What am I gonna gain? Ain't nothing I'm gonna gain. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, it was gonna be a basic. Okay, just a quick basic lesson, man. So, Lord willing was edifying, Lord willing was uplifting. Call Allah help by Shimi Haushai. Double honor to the elders and apostles, double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who rule well and teach well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect. Shalom.